This is a great joiner for a small wood shop without breaking the bank, but one downside of it is that out of the box it just has high-speed steel cutters instead of carbide. I've been using this joiner in my wood shop for about a year, and not long after I got it I installed these aftermarket carbide cutters. In this video I'll show you how I replaced the cutters, made adjustments to the infeed and outfeed table, and do a general review of this Win 8-inch spiral joiner. And note that I'm not sponsored by Win. I bought this joiner with my own money. It's the only joiner I own, and I use it on a regular basis in my wood shop. It wasn't easy to find these carbide cutters. They aren't sold by Win, and they aren't labeled specifically to work with this joiner, but they do fit this joiner perfectly. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested in finding them online. If you've been looking at benchtop joiner options, it's likely you've noticed that there's a lot of different brands selling virtually the identical design of joiner. From the research that I've done, it appears that all these different brand name joiners are likely all made by the same manufacturer in Taiwan named Shinmax Industry. The OEM manufacturer Shinmax owns Cutech, and Cutech is the brand name of these aftermarket carbide cutters that I found. So it's my assumption that this carbide cutter upgrade hack would also work for many other brands of benchtop joiners, not just the Win joiner. If anyone has any helpful info on this, it'd be great if you leave a comment below. So to replace these cutters, just remove the set screw in each one, slip the replacement cutter in place, and replace the screw. Note that the screws that came with the new cutters aren't the right thread size, so I'm just reusing the existing screws, and it works fine. Where I notice any sawdust or debris, I just blast it with my air compressor and just make sure it's clean before putting the new cutter on. The user manual says not to over tighten and that to just use an approximate torque of 50 pounds. These cutters are sold in sets of 10, and there are 16 cutters on this joiner, so I guess you'll have 4 left over. But it turns out these are the same cutters that also fit the Win 13-inch planer, which I also own, so I bought enough cutters for both my joiner and my planer at the same time. After replacing the cutters, then I checked the height of the outfeed table. The instruction manual suggests to use a straight edge across the outfeed table to verify that the straight edge just touches the cutter blade. I also made a partial test cut, and I can see that the outfeed table perfectly accepts the just cut workpiece. And I've not noticed any snipe or bow in my workpieces since I've replaced the cutters, even without adjusting the infeed or outfeed tables. These cutters are listed as 14.3 millimeters, while the Win joiner calls for a 14.25 millimeter size, so I can't explain why an outfeed table height adjustment wasn't necessary for me. But if you do have a need to adjust the outfeed table, here's how to do it. First, remove the 4 screws in the tabletop to access the table height adjustments that are below these screws. So you can then use a straight blade screwdriver to adjust the table and use the partial test cut from earlier as a guide to get the proper outfeed table height. This took a fair amount of fiddling to get it right, and I would say it's really not a very good design on how this works. Good thing it is something that I rarely, if ever, have to mess with. Once the outfeed table is adjusted to the height of the blades, then with the infeed table set at its highest position possible, it should be exactly level to the outfeed table. And at this highest setting, then the depth indicator can also be calibrated to the 0 setting. The depth of cut can easily be set on the fly by releasing the set knob, adjusting the table height for the desired cut, and then retightening the set knob. Enough about table height adjustments. Let's move on to talk about the fence. I frequently move the fence just to spread around the wear on the cutter blades. The fence knobs are a little clumsy and kind of get in the way of each other, and overall the fence support seems a little light and flimsy and doesn't really instill a lot of confidence of being able to keep the fence square. However, I frequently check it to see if it's still square after I move it, and it's always square every time. So the cheap look of the fence mounts is a bit deceiving because it's actually pretty solid and predictable. The fence does have the ability to adjust up to 45 degrees, although I have to admit I've never used it at any other setting than 90 degrees. The dust collection port is 4 inches and it has an adapter to 2.5 inches that I use. I have it plumbed into my workbench dust collection system and it works pretty well, where I rarely notice any sawdust escaping. For more info on the workbench and its dust collection system, I'll leave a link in the description to a video on that. I have the joiner mounted on a pull-out shelf under my workbench, and yet it still operates smoothly with really no noticeable vibrations, so I would say that it's a fairly well-balanced joiner. The Untitled and Outfeed tables are made of cast aluminum, and some would not have anything other than cast iron on a joiner. But yeah, whatever, these tables are solid, flat, and stable. I do occasionally put a paste wax on the surface of the tables just to keep things sliding smoothly. With the pull-out table extensions, there's a total of about 26 inches on each the Untitled and the Outfeed, and the extensions are fairly well aligned with the table height. So it'll handle some decent-sized workpieces, maybe not as ideal as a large freestanding joiner, but for a small workshop like mine on a budget, it's either a benchtop joiner or nothing at all, and this one works pretty well for me. I hope this review was helpful, and thanks for watching.